everyone, welcome back to my channel, or if you're new here, hello, my name is Alivia Brown and I am currently a fourth year undergraduate student at UCLA studying anthropology, and today we're obviously going to be talking about the books that I've read in my anthropology classes. Now this is something that has been highly requested by a lot of you, so I'm really excited to just keep it casual today and get into some of the books I've read. Now for any of my returners, some of the books I have talked about, some of the books I have not talked about, so stick around because there's definitely going to be some new content today. So yes, let's just get into it. Okay, so the first book that I'm going to be talking about, I don't actually have a physical copy of, but it is called Daughters of the Canton Delta. Now, Daughters of the Canton Delta is an ethnography about a marriage system in China that you guys have likely never heard of before, and this marriage system is called delayed transfer marriage. Now, essentially how this works is when two people get married in this region of China, the woman actually does not go to live with her husband yet. There's actually a period of separation after they get married, and this can go from a year to like 3 to 4 years. It really does depend, but it's just important to note that it's an extended period of time. And during these 3 years, let's say, the wife will actually go and visit her husband and his families on special occasions like festivals. And then after these 3 years, sometimes pregnancy happens or other things, and that is why the woman will eventually go and move in with her husband and his family. Now, something really interesting about this ethnography is not only is it exploring this marriage system, the delayed transfer marriage system, but it also looks at economic impacts on the marriage system in this region. And these are two things I think that I wouldn't necessarily intertwine or think about how they were connected to one another, but the author of this ethnography, I personally think, does a really amazing job doing exactly that. Then finally, I did want to mention that this ethnography actually covers other kinds of marriage systems that happen in this region, because delayed transfer marriage is not actually the only one. One of them is called spirit marriage and the other one is called compensation marriage. I'm not going to get into it, I'll just tease it. You guys should go check out this book. It was quite good, so yes, I will leave you with that. Now this next piece I have talked about quite a few times on my channel, so I'm going to keep it pretty concise, but this book is called Articulate While Black. Now Articulate While Black essentially explores the linguistic style of Barack Obama and how he uses language as the president of the United States. Barack Obama, I think, is heralded as one of the best speakers of our time, and Articulate While Black really does push you to consider why people are actually calling him one of the best speakers of our time. And then it also takes a look at how the American people respond to him as the president, as the speaker. So obviously this is a linguistic anthropology book. It's looking at the linguistic implications of a very important political figure in the United States. But something I do really want to discuss is how language in this book, I think, becomes very obviously the tip of the iceberg for other issues that are happening. Racism is an example, sexism is an example. I mean, a lot of things that you could probably think of that are not good things can be seen and represented through language. And I think Articulate While Black does a really good job tying together the linguistic implications and like the social implications of these things that are happening in our world right now. So I would highly recommend going to check that out. Now the next ethnography that I'm talking about that I read for one of my classes, I actually do have a physical copy of, and this one is called Tuhami. Yes, if you're a returner, apologies. I've talked about this like 100 times, but it's so good. And Tuhami, it's written by Vincent Campenzano. It's essentially about this Moroccan man. He is illiterate and he's married to a she demon. He sees this spirit who follows him around, and I cannot pronounce her name, I'll write it right here. But he is haunted by this spirit that he is married to, and Vincent Campenzano, as the ethnographer, is essentially following Tuhami around and trying to understand his psyche, his mind, his experiences, his interactions with his spirit wife, and really just trying to understand how Tuhami experiences the world. Something that I saw in a description for this book that I really appreciated was that Campenzano is trying to give Tuhami's account of himself. And this ethnography very clearly falls in the psychological anthropology category. So if you guys are interested in psychological anthropology, I would highly recommend going and checking this out. But honestly, if you're interested in any other area of anthropology, I would still recommend checking this out because it's probably my favorite book I've ever read for a class. Now, the next piece that I'm going to be talking about is called Radical Hope, written by Jonathan Lear. And this is something very hard to read. That's going to be a little bit of a trend here for the next two pieces. And Radical Hope essentially looks at the leader of the Crow Nation. His name is Plenty Coups, and basically what happens to the Crow Nation when everything that they know is taken away from them. So you may or may not know that many tribes around the world are actually bound to reservations, whether that's presently or whether that's historically. And Radical Hope essentially takes a deep dive into what happens when these reservations and the resources and the livelihood of these tribes are completely stripped away. And there was this quote that I honestly think does Radical Hope better than I ever could. And it is, "When the buffalo went away, the hearts of my people fell to the ground," he said, "and they could not lift them up again. After this, nothing happened." And again, this is devastating. I hate that things like this have even happened in our history, but my goal in sharing these pieces with you guys, and I think the goals of my professors in sharing these pieces with their students, is to not only learn from the experiences of these people, but also take action and implement the things that we've learned into our lives and our policies moving forward. So yes, I think that's all I have to say on Radical Hope, and now on to the next. Okay, so this next one I do again have a physical copy of, and that is The Pastoral Clinic by Angela Garcia. Now, The Pastoral Clinic is, like I said before, another heart-wrencher. It's really hard to read, especially knowing that all of these things really did happen. It's not based on anything. This just is the lives of people around the world. But essentially it takes place in the Espanola Valley, where Angela Garcia finds herself as a helper, as a worker, as an assistant in this heroin addiction clinic where people are trying to free themselves of this addiction. Now, the Espanola Valley actually has the highest rates of heroin addiction and therefore overdoses in the United States. And you can imagine that if you are an ethnographer and find yourself in this space, interacting and trying to help these people who are going through incredibly challenging things like withdrawal, it's going to wreak some havoc on you. And I think that the transference that happens between Garcia and the people in this clinic that she's working with is so palpable in this, and I just would highly, highly recommend reading this ethnography to honestly anyone, because it really does just open your eyes to some of the horrible things, again, that are happening in the world, and honestly, maybe we'll get your wheels turning about the things that we could do about it. Now, the final book that I'm going to talk about, again, I've never actually talked about this one on my channel before, and it's kind of a weird one to throw in here because I wouldn't explicitly call it an anthropology book, but I did read it for an anthropology class. And that book is called Animals in Translation by Temple Grandin. Now, Temple Grandin is first and foremost an animal scientist, and she really wants to understand how animals think, why they act the way they act. And Temple Grandin actually also has autism, and her belief is that the fact that she has autism actually gives her a new perspective into understanding the way that animals might think that's different from the way a neurotypical scientist could look to understand animals. So there's a lot of different theoretical frameworks in here. She throws a lot of really novel ideas out there that you guys probably had never heard before. Most of the things in this I had never heard before, especially because I actually read this book when I was, I think, a freshman, which now I'm a senior. Like, that was ages ago, so apologies for not remembering every detail. But I do just want to say to approach this with caution, because Grandin really does write as if what she's saying is like, this is the way that it is, and I'm pretty confident that animals think this way, when in reality I do think it's a lot of just like what she thinks, which is fine. Like, that's honestly all these books are, what the ethnographer is thinking and why they think the people that they're interacting with think the way they do. So I just think it's really important to approach not only Animals in Translation with caution, but also all these other pieces with caution as well. Okay, I think those are actually all the books that I've read for my anthropology classes that were worth mentioning in this video. Now, if you guys have any anthropology book recommendations for me, please leave those in the comment section down below. I'm very busy right now, so I don't actually know when I'll get to them, but I have a very long list of all the recommendations that you guys have left for me, and I will slowly but surely make my way through them. So yes, let me know what you guys want to see moving forward, and leave a comment down below telling me who you are, where you're from, and why you love anthropology. All right, you guys, I will see you in the next one on Sunday. Bye.